Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Hockenheim as we are about to go green to set the grid for the fourth race of the International GT Open season. This the first visit of the championship to the Hockenheim circuit, and after yesterday's very intriguing race, today's qualifying session is wide open in terms of how the order is going to shake out. Yesterday it was the first victory of the season for the Teo Martin Motorsport pairing of Fran Rueda and Andres Saravia, and they took the win from Pro-Am class winners, the Spirit of Race Ferrari of Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin, with the SPS Automotive Mercedes of Valentin Pierberg and Tom Onslow-Cole completing the podium. In terms of the championship though, Giacomo Alto and Albert Costa managing to finish in 5th position, so they lead the standings by 4 points from Rueda and Saravia, heading into this afternoon's race with just a single point behind. In second, the Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren's is Enrique Chavez and Martin Kodrich. Yesterday's race was marred by the early incident involving Jietong Liang and Alessio Rivera, so whether or not we'll see the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes in the hands of Daniel Zampieri and the Raton by Target Lamborghini in the hands of Raffaele Gianria in this session remains to be seen, and certainly it looks as if both Zampieri and Gianria have taken to the circuit from what the timing screen is telling us, and that is good news given that those cars were both pretty heavily damaged. We also didn't see the Fabio Anidi, Eliseo Martinez Team Lazarus Lamborghini in yesterday's race after Anidi had an incident in qualifying, so fingers crossed we will see those cars out on track, because actually coming past that contrary position is Daniel Zampieri in the Antonelli Mercedes, and just behind him at Gianria in the Raton Lamborghini. So those cars repaired overnight. It's a very long, lengthy evening for the mechanics as a result. So we are expecting to see a good complement of 23, 24 cars out in this session. That's the sporting new Mercedes of Luis Silva. He and Antonio Coimbra, runners-up in the AM class yesterday. To the 25 car at the back of your pitch, that's Martin Conrad and Sandro Raquina, whereas finishing in 6th yesterday was the other of the HTP Mercedes, and that was in the hands of Russell Ward and Indy Doncia, and they finished 3rd in the Pro-Am class. So lots of talking points yesterday. Here is Giacomo Altoe, finished 3rd on the road, 5th overall after a 3-second time penalty was employed, but nonetheless the Emil Frey racing team, having had a win apiece for both of their Lamborghinis in the opening event of the season, in Paul Ricard right in the hunt again yesterday. So it's a 30-minute qualifying session, and the teams have all got to think about how they use their complement to Michelin tyres through the weekend. It's Christoph Lenz in another of the Raton by Target Lamborghini Huracans. We're in car with Kenny Harble in the Sun Energy Row Racing Mercedes. Around he goes. Gets the car back into gear and on his way. Although it's bright and sunny, it's still a little bit chilly this morning as Fabrizio Crostani has some work done on his SPS Mercedes. Oh, and that is off and into the tyre wall for Davide Roda. And Roda, that's over at turn 12, which is the Sachs curve, something of a bête noire for Roda. He had an incident yesterday where he spun into the gravel. This time he's done it rather more comprehensively, and that has brought out a red flag already to pause the qualifying session. So proving to be a tough weekend for the Antonelli Motorsport team. They lost Rivera and Giuseppe Cipriani very early on in yesterday's race. Davide Roda rounds back the midpoint of the race, and Roda off again early on in qualifying. So the clock stopped just 4 minutes or so into the session. Hope there's not too much damage there for Davide Roda. It's more just a case of retrieving the car more than anything else. So the field will come in and peel up a pit lane. This is the car. It's very badly damaged. Yesterday is Bernd Schneider. here watching proceedings this weekend. Schneider, of course, something of a Mercedes legend. That is the car of Roder. He's just about kissed the tyres, and he will be dragged clear in due course. Everybody else rolling down the pit lane. So of those that have set a time so far, it was Nicholas Pola who was currently quickest in the Team Lazarus Lamborghini from Raffaele Gianmaria. Andres Saravia in third as we're in car with Chiva, and Chiva was again spectacular at the wheel of the Tempesta Racing Ferrari yesterday afternoon, and a chance for him to try and emulate what Matt Griffin did yesterday in terms of getting his Ferrari right up towards the front of the field in qualifying. As Chiva rolls in down the pit lane. Should be a reasonably brief pause here for the red flag, because although Roder is comprehensively beached, I don't think he will have picked up too much damage to the Mercedes. So to a halt comes Chiva, up on the air jacks, car turned off. And there is Roder being dragged clear. Not quite the start today the Antonelli Motorsport team would have wanted. Just a quick change of tyres there for Martin Conrad in the HTP Mercedes. He and Alexander Krakwina currently going very well in the AM Championship, and Conrad in particular has been very rapid all season and swept through to take the lead of the class about 2/3 the way through yesterday's race. So that's the number 6 car of Alessio Rivera and Daniel Zampieri. Car very, very badly damaged in yesterday's race, and it's great to see that it is out there for qualifying this morning. Zampieri and Rivera were on the podium in the second race of the year in Paul Ricard, as good news is, doesn't appear to be much damage there to Davide Roder's car, just the front bumper. The pit lane will open again in some 10 seconds' time. And at the moment, nobody particularly rushing to queue up to be first out. They're all up on the air jacks. And again, the time of the red flag, slightly awkward, sort of midway through people's first runs. They'll have just got some heat into the tyres as Giacomo Otoe rumbles down the pit lane. Chance to look at Christoph Lenz in action, and some spectacular angles of attack all weekend through turn 1. Daniel Zampieri just contacting the team on the radio as Kenny Harble and Edward Chiva take to the circuit, as does Christoph Lenz. So still the meat of the session to go. And we hadn't really seen any times being set at the point at which the red flag came out. In fact, there were a couple of cars that we hadn't seen on circuit at all. Darren Turner and Eliseo Martinez. As I said, there's the question mark about whether or not Martinez will appear after that car was damaged by Fabio Anidi in yesterday's qualifying session. Teo Martin Motorsport, meanwhile, about to send Saravia back out into the fray. Yesterday's winner, and Saravia and Fran Ueda managing the race strategy absolutely perfectly, pitting very early in the window. It meant Saravia had to get the hammer down straight away in the session, which he did, in his stint, which he did, and that then meant once pit stops had worked through, it was just Duncan Cameron who was ahead of him, and after several laps of pursuit, Saravia was able to move clear of the Ferrari and on to take the victory. So Saravia just warming his tyres as we've got the first couple of cars now coming past our commentary box, which just overlooks the grid here. Hockenheimring gives us a view of the sort of Motodrome Stadium section. And now everybody in the session has taken to the track pretty much. The exception being that we've not seen Elizo Martinez as yet. Darren Turner out on track and immediately going quite quickly in the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin, and Turner, for what it's worth, has done the fastest middle sector of anybody in this qualifying period on his out lap. And Turner having to work very hard in yesterday afternoon's race alongside birthday boy Ollie Wilkinson. It's the McLaren goes in its way, Edward Cheever. Also now embarking possibly on what might be a flying lap. And Cheever on the brakes into turn 8. Quarter of a second up through the first sector, but it's a little bit of, this time's not massively indicative just at the moment, because it's a 1 minute 39.1 from Nicholas Polar. It wasn't really a full-blooded flying lap just at that point, because for reference, yesterday's pole position time was a 1 minute 36.7 from Tom Onslow Cole. So we're looking for something in the 1 minute 36 bracket, I would suggest, could give us pole, as Giacomo Otoe does a 1 minute 38.1. Here comes Cheever then, and he does a 1 minute 38.3. And these are the sort of times yesterday that would be good enough for about 15th on the grid. So there's a little bit more time to come. That's Matt Griffin there to the left of your picture. Front runners in yesterday's race, eventually finishing second, winning the Crown class. Griffin having led much of the early stages. So Cheever in pursuit of Enrique Chavez in another of the Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens. There is the third of the Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens, that in the hands of Marcello Hahn. He's got Giacomo Otoe right behind him, and this is frustrating for Otoe because he would ideally be wanting to try and pick his way past the McLaren, but he's not able to do so into turn 8. And so the frustration continues to mount from a little bit. He's going to be able to do so now as they run into turn 11, or is he? Yes, Hahn sees him just in time. Somebody's kicked off a huge amount of dust over at turn 11. They've not gone off, though. It's now Norbert Seidler who goes quickest in the other of the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis, 1 minute 38.058 for Seidler. So he is 0.07 of a second faster than teammate Otoe. Darren Turner also on a good lap in the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin. And Otoe doesn't improve on that lap, a 1 minute 39.5. As Fabrizio Crostani goes quickest, a 1 minute 37.9 for Crostani. But Seidler, who we watch now, is up on Crostani through the first sector. Here is Darren Turner, meanwhile, who is quickest of anybody through the first sector. And Turner, vastly experienced at the wheel of Aston Martins. He's competed at World Championship level for many, many years. He's got one of the Mercedes just ahead of him. I don't think that's going to cause him too much of a delay. And Turner looking set for something like a 1 minute 37.7 on this lap. Comes through the final corner. Applies the throttle, accelerates, pursues Martin Conrad, and Turner does go quickest to 1 minute 37.749 for Darren Turner, so that puts him 0.2 of a second clear of the rest of the field. Crostani on a quick lap, but he has got Hahn, who drives into him, and Marcello Hahn just had Fabrizio Crostani in his blind spot, turned across, side-on-side contact. I rather feel, though, Marcello Hahn picks up some damage. Crostani to the inside, and yeah, he was just in the blind spot of the McLaren. Marcello Hahn turns across, and I rather fear that he's picked up some damage to the front right corner as a result. Also, Daniel Zampieri, well held, coming through turn 11. Oh, and Fabrizio Crostani's also picked up a puncture from that contact with Marcello Hahn. So Crostani limping back to the pits. The good news is he's not got too far to go. He's going to be able to head into the pit lane at this moment, but not what the SPS Mercedes team wanted at all. Cristani was on a quick run. He'd just gone faster than anybody through the first sector. And he now runs down the pit lane. Good news is there doesn't seem to be much in the way of damage to that car. So the other question is, whereabouts is Marcello Hahn? The answer is Marcello Hahn is just behind. So he also comes in. This is the challenge with these GT3 cars, because they've got all these aerodynamic devices on them. If you have side-on-side contact, it can be just quite easy to cut a tyre. It's Darren Turner pressing on his way. He's up behind Martin Conrad, and Turner was up through the middle sector, but doesn't quite improve through the final sector. So a 1 minute 37.7 remains his best. It's very, very close though at the front. The top 5 covered by just 0.2 of a second. That's Turner, Altoe, Cristani, Seidler and Cheever. The SPS Automotive team, understandably, going for a full inspection inside the front left corner. So here we see it again, Cristani to the inside, and Marcello Hahn just into, I think it must have been one of the aerofoils, just slicing the tyre. It looks like Marcello Hahn also picked up a puncture through that. Meanwhile, Andres Saravia is in clear air, so he doesn't need to worry too much about those around him. Valentin Pierberg also into the pit lane and having a service. Federico Leo in the Ombra Racing Lamborghini, and Leo, 2012 champion in the International GT Open. He's just behind Luis Silva in the Sporting U Mercedes, and what we saw yesterday in the race was that overtaking is tricky here in Hockenheim for these GT3 cars. We're seeing it even in qualifying today. There is Marcello Hahn's car, that eternal motorsport cure-all of masking tape being required for any in-session servicing. Now, Eddie Cheever has just gone second. And Cheever, a 1 minute 37.815, 66 thousandths of a second adrift of the mark set by Darren Turner, who is back into the pit lane. The Optimum Motorsport team get to work. And Cheever has just set the fastest middle sector of anybody in the session as well. So we're watching the Aston Martin in the pits. Cheever is heading through the Sachs curve at the moment. He only needs to find a fraction of a second to go fastest. Here's Martin Conrad, and Conrad currently the AM class pole sitter, 7th overall, as Cheever comes out the final turn, crosses the line and moves fastest in the session. A 1 minute 37.708 for Edward Cheever. So that gives him provisional pole by 41 thousandths of a second. The field all getting very close to each other. And this circuit really seeming to suit the two Spirit of Race prepared Ferraris this weekend. The Tempesta Racing side of the stable benefiting in qualifying this morning. Duncan Cameron, yesterday's runner-up, he's currently in 15th overall. Best of 1 minute 39.293. So what we saw in yesterday's race was a lot in the Pro-Am class. Most of the pros qualifying the car for yesterday, and Cheever, one of the exceptions to that rule. And at the moment, he is able to take full advantage of that. So the classification is Cheever from Darren Turner, then Giacomo Altoe, Fabrizio Cristani, Norbert Seidler in 5th, Martin Conrad AM class pole sitter in 6th, Raffaele Giammaria in 7th, Enrique Chavez in 8th, Federico Leo in 9th, and Russell Ward currently completes the top 10. But we are, however, the pole mark for Cheever may not last all that much longer, because his team manager's just been summoned to race control with immediate effect, so possibly something's been spotted. Here then is Martin Conrad, who qualified superbly as well in Paul Ricard. Conrad really relishing the HTP Motorsport Mercedes. His last lap was a 1 minute 38.149, only 0.4 of a second off pole position. Although this has the makings of an in-lap as well. So the overwhelming majority of the field currently in the pits. Valentin Pierberg, meanwhile, is on a flying run. He has just done his best first sector of the session with 13 minutes to run. And Pierberg currently in 20th position. And that just sees him outside the top 5 in the Pro-Am class. Last year's Pro-Am champion alongside Tom Onslow Cole. And there's the provisional pulses, but we've still got over a third of the session to run. And we've still got, really, since that red flag, half of the session remaining. So it is all very nicely poised. Valentin Pierberg is likely to make an improvement as we watch all the cars being serviced in the pit lane. They've worked for Martin Conrad as well. Federico Leo, another driver who's just gone out on an outlap. And Leo currently 10th overall in the Ombre Lamborghini. Valentin Pierberg comes past us and goes 14th. Another driver who is going well is John Schaffner in the Get Speed Mercedes, new to the championship this weekend. As Federico Leo just warms up the Michelin tyre. This is Kenny Harble, running very, very wide through turn 1, and his team manager has just been summoned to race control. So here's John Schaffner, he and Janine Hill finishing 3rd in the AM class yesterday afternoon. And Schaffner was on course for his best lap of the session earlier on in this lap, and he still does his best lap of the session, moves to 18th as a result, a 1 minute 39.904. So we're in car with Kenny Harble. Back to the external view of John Schaffner. And they are currently 3rd in the AM class qualifying, just behind Giuseppe Cipriani, but ahead of Luis Silva. And Davide Roda, of course, hasn't set a time after his adventure early on. So here's Fabrizio Cristani back out in the SPS Mercedes after that contact with Marcello Hahn. Fingers crossed for the Italian that was just a puncture and no more in terms of damage. Certainly the way the car is running at the moment, that seems to be the case. Cristani accelerating down back straight. Bursts into turn 7. And this at the moment for Cristani is, if it's a flying lap, it's not quite at his ultimate pace. It comes towards the end of the second sector. He's a little bit off in this lap, but next time around he's got clear track around him. He may well be able to push as the pit lane is meanwhile steadily emptying. Cars heading back out for their final run of the session. So Fabrizio Cristani now, I would suggest, about to embark on a full-blown flying lap. His immediate target is Duncan Cameron. I don't think Cameron's going to be a particular concern for him on this lap. Federico Leo is on the cusp of setting his best lap of the session. So look at a little bit of an adventure for Valentin Pierberg. Fortunately, because we've not had too much precipitation, certainly not as was feared, is that the grass is pretty dry around the circuit, so it's not proving to be too slippery. Federico Leo has gone 6th, a 1 minute 38.034, as we're in car with Norbert Seidler, victorious in race 2 in Paul Ricard alongside Michael Grenier. Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini arrives into the Sachs curve rides the camber. And Seidler, this is the end of an out lap, so he's going to have this lap, probably one more, and then look to start to press on with trying to set a time. So through he goes. Meanwhile, Giacomo Altoe, another driver who's just completed an out lap. So the two Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis, by my reckoning, also will have the benefit of no success handicaps this afternoon, could well find themselves in the hunt. And it's Giacomo Altoe, with Norbert Seidler rather, who's just set the fastest first sector of anybody in the session. So Seidler immediately up to speed, having completed the out lap. And he and Altoe through sector 1, separated by just 0.08 of a second. This is the car of Giacomo Altoe. You can pick it out mainly because it's got the blue front cover and predominantly blue roof, whereas the car with the white flashes is that of Norbert Seidler. Both drivers navigating sector 2 at the moment, coming out of turn 10 now, and then the end of sector 2 comes midway through this straight, and it's Seidler who's the driver who's really flying, still fractioning up on teammate Altoe, but the pair of them are looking set to lock out the front row of the grid at the moment. So they head through the Sachs curve. Got one car losing a time for track limits, that's number 12, Federico Leo. So that's going to cost him a bit, as across the line goes Altoe. He takes pole position momentarily, 1 minute 37.5, until Seidler comes past with a 1 minute 37.530, exactly 0.06 of a second quicker than teammate Altoe. Tiniest of margins between the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis. Other drivers are going well, including Andres Saravia, and Saravia in the Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren has just gone quicker than anybody through the middle sector. He's got a little bit of traffic in the form of Giuseppe Cipriani through the final couple of turns. So we're back in car with Norbert Seidler. Watching Seidler on screen, Saravia coming past us and going 5th with a 1 minute 37.934. There's yesterday's race winner. And all of a sudden, with 6 minutes to go, you don't know where to look, because Saravia's in a little bit of traffic. Seidler's just set the fastest first sector of the session once more. And here is Norbert Seidler. Picking up the throttle. And a little bit down on teammate Altoe, in fact, through the middle sector. So once more, it's a shootout between Giacomo Altoe and Norbert Seidler. In fact, Norbert Seidler a long way down on teammate Altoe. So it's Giacomo Altoe who might be on the cusp of pipping Norbert Seidler for that pole position. Altoe comes through now. Here he is. And he doesn't go faster. He was caught with John Schaffner through the final sector. So traffic proving to be a factor for both of the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis on that occasion. Enrique Chavez, meanwhile, goes 4th in the Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren. I think we had a lost time, possibly for Andres Saravia. Yes, we did, for track limits at turn 1. So he's been jettisoned back down to 15th. Darren Turner also on a good lap at the moment, as is Daniel Zampieri and the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes. So the order all chopping and changing late on in the session. 4.5 minutes to run. It's currently the man we're watching, Norbert Seidler, who's in pole. But for how long? Darren Turner is on a good lap, but Turner has got traffic in the form of Edward Cheever just ahead of him. You can see them heading into the Sachs curve from the commentary box. So that may cost Turner his shot. Watching very nervously Albert Costa, who partners Giacomo Altoe in the car, currently in 2nd position. This lap, by the way, for Norbert Seidler may be a fraction improvement. Here's Darren Turner, who had to back out. That last lap as Enrique Chavez just behind him goes fastest. So the Teo Marti Motorsport McLaren of the Portuguese driver moves up the times at 1 minute 37.404, but not for long. It's Giacomo Altoe who now takes pole position. So it's Altoe from Chavez, who we currently watch. Norbert Siedler in third. Edward Cheever in fourth. Darren Turner in fifth, having had to have backed out that lap behind Cheever. Martin Conrad goes sixth in the HTP Motorsport Mercedes to lead the AM class. And everybody is still improving by the tiniest of margins through the first sector. We've got a lot of very quick cars all running together on the road at the moment. Here is Enrique Chavez then. Through turn 8. And he was 0.003 of a second up on himself through sector 1. Runs in pursuit of Darren Turner. Turner's a couple of tenths away from where he would want to be ideally. And Chavez a little bit up. Giacomo Altoe, who runs behind him on the road, a little bit down. So could this be pole for the Teo Marti Motorsport McLaren? Just a couple of corners on this lap to run, and they've only got time for 2 more laps in the session, tyres permitting at the end of this one. And Chavez decides not to complete the lap as Darren Turner goes second. So Turner goes second in the Optima Motorsport Aston Martin, and Enrique Chavez, having been on a potential pole position run, deciding to peel into the pit lane. And that's his shot at pole gone, as it's now Norbert Siedler who moves to the top of the times for Emil Frey Racing. Siedler a 1 minute 37.399, 0.005 of a second quicker than Giacomo Altoe, who we watch currently. The top 5 cars separated by 92 thousandths of a second. These are the tiniest of margins, with 1.5 minutes to run in this qualifying session. And this has been a phenomenally exciting session as well. Nicholas Pola, meanwhile, has moved up into 6th place in the Lazarus Lamborghini. But these top 5 cars separated by the most minute of margins. Now the man, if we can find him, is Darren Turner, who is on an absolute flyer. And Turner, fastest middle sector of anybody, up in sector 1. The challenge that he's got as we follow Giacomo Altoe is he's right behind Cheever through the final sector, and Cheever, I think, is sandbagging Turner a bit. Oh, and Darren Turner's had his lap ruined there by Edward Cheever. Turner caught him just coming into sector 3. Edward Cheever was determined not to jump aside, probably because he was winding up for a flying lap as well. And what looked as if it could have been a pole position lap for Darren Turner proves not to be. Cost him 0.3 through the last sector. In reality, it looked a bit more than that, so he is going to be frustrated with that. As Cheever heads into one more flying lap, which he needs to make count if he possibly can. So Turner currently in 3rd. Norbert Siedler, original pole, he's peeled into the pit, so the only driver now who could really overhaul them is Edward Cheever. And Turner's been caught with traffic a couple of times in this session. Emil Frey Racing, watching the monitors, this isn't over yet. Thumbs up from Albert Costa though, currently looking set for the front row of the grid. It's the car of Norbert Siedler. Bulk of the field rolls into the pit lane. And Cheever's not on a good lap either, so looks as if the order is pretty much set for this, the 4th race of the International GT Open season, with pole position to Norbert Siedler for Emil Frey Racing in the Lamborghini. It's an all Emil Frey Racing front row with the sister car of Giacomo Altoe alongside, just 0.005 of a second between the pair of them, and only a further 0.03 of a second back is Darren Turner lining up in 3rd place. Enrique Chavez in 4th. So job done for Emil Frey Racing. Immediate debrief from the drivers as the rest of the field trail into the pit lane. They've pretty much all completed their session, the exception being Davide Roda. So here is the classification then of how they qualified, with Norbert Seidler in pole position just ahead of teammate Giacomo Artois for Emil Frey Racing. Darren Turner, what might have been, but he will line up in 3rd ahead of Teo Martin Motorsport, McLaren of Enrique Chavez. Edward Cheever into 5th alongside Nicolas Pola in the Lazarus Lamborghini. Raffaele Gianria and Fabrizio Cristani on row 4, ahead of Federico Leo and Kang Ling for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing. Ling second in the Pro-Am class to Cheever. Then Andres Saravia, yesterday's race winner, lines up in 11th, ahead of Am class pole sitter Martin Conrad. Daniel Zampieri in his repaired Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes in 13th from Giuseppe Cipriani. Davide Roda, of course, didn't set a time, and we didn't see Eliseo Martinez. So we'll be back at 2 o'clock local time this afternoon for the 4th race of the season. It promises to be a very, very close one here in Hockenheim, so do make sure that you join us for that one.